Hi, I'm host Eric. I'm talking with famous people, and I finally come to admit it. I'm not infallible. It's true. There was a lot of discussion amongst the other bishops in Rome. They were thinking about extending the Pope's infallibility to me, but they eventually said no. They came up with 45 instances of me being wrong in one 30-second period, and so they decided that wasn't quite infallible enough. Anyway, the point is, human beings are in fact infallible. I mean, fallible, not infallible. And we're all sometimes wrong. And the other thing is, we all agree that most things that we talk about can be addressed on the metric of right or wrong. Right or wrong meaning correct, incorrect, on one of a couple of different levels. We rely on this factor to deal with all sorts of things in life. So, if I make an appointment at a hair salon that's an hour from my house and I drive all the way there, and I go in and they say, "Oh, I'm sorry, we booked somebody else in your spot. There'll be another spot open up in a few hours." And you go, "Well, but I made an appointment." And they said, "Well, I know, but you weren't here. But I'm on time. I'm not late. In fact, I'm 3 minutes early." Say, "Yeah, but they were here already." "Well, why can't I go after as soon as they get done with their haircut?" "Oh, well, then I have another person waiting behind them." But I had an appointment, right? We rely on the fact that sometimes everybody can agree that sometimes someone is wrong about something. That's not a good enough reason. Everybody can agree that such a thing occurs. That it might be okay to have not shown up back at class after lunch break because I was mauled by a bear in the parking lot. But it's a lot less okay if I didn't show up back in class because I was drunk in the gutter outside, right? I mean, neither of them is okay, but who gets in trouble changes a lot. If it's the bear has mauled me, then who gets in trouble is the guy we had hired to prevent bears from mauling people. If it's the drunk in the gutter, then presumably I made the decision to get drunk and lie in the gutter, so that's my fault. And even if we want to say, "Oh, well, that's a medical thing, it's not really your fault," it's not like you're going to be rewarded for that behavior. You might be rewarded in some way for like having successfully fought off the bear and survived. I don't know. At least you'd be given plenty of condolence cards, and everyone would feel bad, and they think you were a good guy. They wouldn't think you were a bad guy. So the reason does matter. And if somebody says to you, for example, and we all agree with this, if I say to you, I see you at the store and I say, "Oh, the reason you're here is because you think there are polar bears here and you're going to buy some." You go, "No, that's not why I'm here. What gave you that idea?" We all agree that wrongness occurs. We all agree. Everybody can find something we agree is wrong. The problem is we don't all agree that different scenarios require different kinds of arguments. But the fact that we all agree that sometimes people are wrong is a good starting spot. That's where we can begin by saying, all right, you are no longer an awful human being, because we're at step one. We admit at least that sometimes some people are wrong about some things. Because prior to that, everybody's wrong if they disagree with me. And then we need to understand that the capacity to acknowledge that multiple voices, including those that you think of as wrong, need to have a fair opportunity to compete in a political arena means something important. If you believe that even people who are wrong should get to have their equal opportunity to speak and make arguments and stuff in the political arena, and that they should be treated fairly in a similar way to the way you're treated, if you think those things, then you are saying fundamentally that you are infallible. I'm infallible because I have my personal religious beliefs. I believe that other people should be able to speak, but I believe that we should always do what my argument says because it's supported by God, and their arguments are not supported by God. So functionally, what it comes down to here on earth, though, is you and I disagree. And I'm maybe arguing a position that is not religious, and you're arguing a position that's religious. So if we play by your rules, that a religious reason, or your religious reason, specifically, because remember, it's not all religions. They're not going to say the opposing religions get their equal amount of power. If that's the trump card, like, well, it's what God wants, it's the trump card, what you're really saying is not about God at all. It's not about what God wants or anything. It's not a policy issue here. Nobody's talking about any specific policy. We're saying if you can correctly prove that yes, according to your religion, according to your religious beliefs, that is what God wants, then that still should not, most importantly, should not win the argument. And the reason is because if it does, then you are infallible. You, not God, you. Because if you disagree with me and you assert that it is because of a difference between religious beliefs and what I'm saying, then even if you're right about God, it makes you functionally infallible anytime anybody disagrees with you, unless they disagree with you for religious reasons. But we know already that a lot of people want to disagree for non-religious reasons. And remember, we began this argument chain by pointing out that if you agree people who are wrong should get to have their voice in the political process, which certainly I do. If you don't agree that people who are wrong should have their voice in the political process, then basically you're saying, I am an authoritarian theocrat in the same vein as ISIS. If you're ISIS, then you're ISIS. You just are a murderous scumbag. Okay, well, that's obviously not something we have to have any political discussion about. To fail to understand that that's exactly what differentiates a legitimate argument from a non-legitimate one. If it affords you infallibility, if I choose to disagree on some other vector, then no, you lose. Because my whole point was always about this religious argument thing is not that your religious points are wrong or bad. It's that they don't count as arguments in public policy decision making, because if they do, then you're infallible. And I don't think you're infallible. I think you're fallible, like everybody else. I think you're more fallible than me. I've gotten a fallibility counter, like a Geiger counter, but for fallibility. And when I put it next to you, it goes, click, 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 and it explodes because it's overheated so much. That's how fallible you are. It's very, very fallible.